I think where it's good to start is like, let's go through timeline of, we recorded this episode. We knew the PGA Tour was going to be making a response on Wednesday, which is when we released our episode. They had that players meeting when we were kind of recording, and there had been stuff that had been leaked, but not everything officially yet. Then we knew the European Tour was going to respond, which the big question was like, what is the European Tour going to side with Saudis? Which I almost think we talk about that stuff first. And the PGA Tour's response, they came out with the alliance. Basically, the European Tour said they're siding with the PGA Tour. They're not banning players. They're going to suspend them. And then more stuff came out. But I guess to start with the PGA Tour response, and it's a work in progress. We'd like to say that it's a work in progress because they're still doing this on the fly. But basically what they did is they're going to limit the amount of guys who qualify for the FedEx Cup moving forward in a couple of years.
2024.
2024, only 50 guys will make the playoffs. Next year, only 70 will make the playoffs. And so those 50 guys will then play for the normal FedEx Cup playoffs. But then they're also going to have in the fall just a random 3 tournament series, no cut event where they're going to be funneling these top 50 guys for the season money. So you have to earn your way into that, and then you're going to get paid for it, obviously. I'm curious if what they're going to do with those 3 events, because right now it sounds like, hey, we're just going to do the same thing LIV is. We're just trying to get these guys who at least earn their way to make this money to get there. Yep. But what I'd like to see is them do different stuff, especially if it's not going to impact the season. They're going to limit the FedEx Cup season to starting January 1st and go through. That fall part is completely gone.
Yep.
So the question mark right now is okay, what happens to the guys who don't qualify for the FedEx Cup? Those, you obviously set, 51 to 125, and then even you obviously have the 126 to 200 who went to the Korn Ferry Finals because they've eliminated the Korn Ferry Finals now.
Yeah,
So this is where it gets really confusing. But now you have these guys who basically are going to play other tournaments to vie for status and better can improve their status for the upcoming PGA Tour season. Again, that stuff will be defined. My concern with it is we're now even going to have more guys who are going to have some sort of conditional status, limiting what some of these younger guys can get access to on the PGA Tour. I'm just saying that out of speculation. Obviously, nothing's come out just yet. So that's what was released. And the PGA Tour said we're up in the money in, let me see these events that they had, in 8 different events. The Century Tournament of Champions, which is only winners, so it's 30 guys.
I love that. One of my favorite events.
The Genesis Invitational up $8 million. Arnold Palmer up another $8 million. Players Championship up $5 million. Match Play up $8 million. Memorial up $8 million. The St. Jude Classic up $5 million, and the BMW Championship up $5 million, which those are the 2 playoff events. So they're increasing purses. Which then everyone's like, well, Phil was right. Obviously, they had all this money. It's there's a lot of other things that go into it.
Correct.
But that was kind of their response, which at surface level, when I heard it, I was not too excited. And I've been able to digest it a little bit. And then there was announcements made today that has made me lean a little more. I even told you earlier, I was like, I'm getting ready to make a rant on this, but they literally, not that they were listening to me, they release stuff. And
they're big fans of the podcast.
Yeah, of course. And they're listening. They're thinking about hiring us. No.
Yeah.
So, but before we get into that, Friday, European Tour comes out and says, guys who are going to be playing in these events, they will be suspended from the Scottish Open, which is a co-sanctioned PGA Tour and European Tour event. Means you can basically get points on both tours, the Race to Dubai and the FedEx Cup. But they're going to be suspended for that event, so they can't play. They're going to be fined €100,000, which is a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah.
So that obviously doesn't, it's not something that is going to impact Justin Johnson, but some of the guys who are currently on the European Tour, that's a big impact to them if they want to keep playing on that tour. So that was basically the European Tour saying, hey, we're siding with the PGA Tour. So big deal there. So I think now let's sit back and say what's our thoughts? I guess I just did a lot of talking, Nick. What are your initial thoughts on what the PGA Tour came out and said? Their thoughts?
So to me at first, it didn't seem we've said it before. Jay Monahan hasn't really said a lot, right? And you're waiting for dominoes to fall. So I truly believe the partnership between what is called the European Tour now is the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. That's really the first big domino because these guys in LIV Golf were applying to go to that tour and essentially try to get their world ranking points because what it comes down to is you need world ranking points to get into the majors. Usually the top 50 players in the world get invited to the World Golf Classic events and all the majors. So now now it feels like the PGA Tour has players that are leaving balls in a vice, especially if the official World Golf Rankings don't approve LIV Golf for world ranking points. So that's going to be that's really going to be the deciding factor for all of these players moving forward. As far as being able to play in the majors, which at the end of the day, that's only thing anybody ever cares about is the majors. So that plays a big role. So to me, I think it not so much that we hinted at it, but we kind of did. And I believe it was either last week's episode or the week before, we said if the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour can get together and form some type of world tour, which it sounds like they're going to do now. Like I believe PGA Tour is going to commit 40% of, I guess, resources to the European Tour.
Well, they own 40% stake in the European Tour.
Correct.
Now. They went from 15 to 40%.
Right, and now they're helping them increase their payouts by the next 5 years is what they're gonna try to do. So essentially, what we're getting is not saying that we called it, or we predicted it, but we said there's a good chance that you're gonna get a world tour out of this.
Yeah, and it's almost like they're gonna be a feeder tour, kind of to the PGA Tour, which it's interesting, basically.
Yeah. So top 10 players in the race to Dubai are now going to get PGA Tour cards.
Yep.
When it's all said and
They're
done,
going to earn for the next season, which is cool.
Which I think is great. I think
it's a new opportunity to go play.
Yeah, you're going to see now. I think moving forward, especially having these co-branded events, I think events like the Scottish Open could become bigger,
which it has kind of in the last couple of years.
Correct. Yeah, I think they maybe from a scheduling standpoint may have to move it around to get bigger names because it's so close to the British Open. So that's going to be fun. I like the direction of. This was a huge win for the PGA Tour. I would sit there and say the PGA Tour. This was pretty vital for the PGA Tour to negate what's going to go on with LIV Golf. And there's still a lot of questions out there, but they're kind of sold their business model of, giving these guys millions of dollars at the end of the year after the FedEx Cup playoffs are done and over with. So for me, not necessarily that the guys that stayed have to thank guys like Dustin Johnson or Phil Mickelson or anything from that standpoint, but things just got a whole lot better for the guys that are now staying.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what a lot of the players were like, what's the incentive for us to freaking stay, basically? And it's a different tournament versus exhibition type thing. I think where we're going to see the big thing or challenges, or I guess my concern with this, and I'm not playing devil's advocate, but I kind of am, is these co-sanctions events, basically. The week of the Scottish Open, there's also, I think it's the Barracuda Championship, which means players on both tours can play in either one. Obviously, the Scottish Open is going to be the premier field, and then you're going to have this second-tier tournament. Similar to how the Puerto Rico Open's a second-tier tournament compared to some other ones. That's what it basically means with these co-sanctioned events. You're going to have the top ones and the bottom ones, which I do like that. I think in retro, surface level, it could be a really good idea for more of a world tour. Hey, we're going to include maybe a tournament in Australia, maybe a tournament in Japan. I don't know how they're going to exactly do that, but I'm curious how it will all kind of intertwine with each other, because the top 10 players in the race to Dubai now will earn a PGA Tour card. Yep. Which is odd because how I almost thought it was going to be is this is another kind of when I hear that, it's more of another feeder tour to the PGA Tour. We're going to have, because I think we talked about it on the last podcast, there's two tours on the PGA Tour. There's the sick play, the really good players, the Rorys, the Justin Thomas, the Jordan Spieths, and then you have the no-name guys who are playing in the John Deere Classics and these different tournaments, and there's a distinct different type of player in it. And so I almost think this is a stepping stone to a point where you're going to have the conglomerate, PGA Tour is this main place. Then you're going to have kind of this local centralized feeder tour in the Korn Ferry, meaning local United States. Yep. And then you're going to have kind of more of a local world feeder tour to the PGA Tour as well. That's where I think long-term it's going to go. Obviously, it's going to be a slow movement. And to get the PGA Tour, for the PGA Tour to get the DP World Tour on their side, they had to do this.
Yeah.
But putting 40% stake into it, it's
a big deal.
That's a large amount, and that's a large amount of investment that they're going to do, and it's obviously making some consistent, thoughts between both of them. So it'll be interesting how that will all work. My only question is like last year, Colin Morikawa won the race to Dubai. So like, do you go the top 10 players who don't already have a PGA Tour card?
I would imagine that's
and then
how
what
they have
does
to do it.
that status look like compared to maybe guys who didn't make the playoffs or guys in the Corn Ferry? Like, that's another thing.